So we are, I think I'm up next.
Yep.
So we're going to be covering Old 97s with their album Too Far to Care. In the opening montage, you heard Time Bomb, and now you're going to hear Streets of Where I'm From.
And I don't know what you've been told. The streets of where I'm from, the paper hearts instead of gold.
So Too Far to Care by Old 97s comes in at number 673 in the 1990s on Best Ever Albums, number 62 in 1997, number 4001 of all time. It is the Old 97's highest rated album on Best Ever Albums. It did not make Rolling Stone's list, and Old 97s are ranked number 1,950 of overall artist rankings on Best Ever Albums. So this is the first time we're covering Old 97s, and Too Far to Care is their third studio album, released on June 17th, 1997. My mom's birthday. That was a good birthday present for her. Genres include alt-country, country rock, Americana, indie rock, and power pop. Certain artists that influenced them include Big Star, Buddy Holly, T-Rex, The Replacements, Waylon Jennings, Johnny Cash, The Clash, Uncle Tupelo, and X. Many of those artists we've covered. We've covered all of them except, I think, Waylon Jennings and Buddy Holly. So there you go. Their highest charting album is 2014's Most Messed Up. That hit number 30 in the U.S., and their highest charting single is 1999's Murder or a Heart Attack, which hit number 6 on the U.S. adult and alternative chart. So a little history on the band. They were formed in Dallas, Texas, by frontman Stuart Ransom Miller, also known as Rhett. Goes by Rhett Miller. So when he was in high school, he released a solo album called Mythologies. And he said that he got the nickname Rhett because his mother liked Rhett Butler from the movie Gone with the Wind. So he went by Rhett from childhood. He enlisted Murray Hammond to produce that record that he created. Murray Hammond was several years older than him. I wasn't sure exactly how they met up. I don't think they went to school together, but they did. And then they later turned up to form a band called Sleepy Heroes and released a record together there. And then they went on to form the Old 97s in 1993 and started out mostly as a bar band, along with Rhett Miller on guitars and vocals and Murray Hammond on bass and vocals. They enlisted a lead guitarist by the name of Ken Bethea. And so they were a trio for a while. The name of the band came from a reference of the wreck of the Old 97, which apparently was an American rail disaster that occurred on September 27th, 1903. A train went off the rails, it killed 11 people and injured 7 others. And that incident was kind of inspired a number of songs at the time, a number of different kind of country western songs, including Wreck of the Old 97s, Wreck of the Old 97, which was recorded by a number of artists. So the band name came as an homage to that. They eventually added a drummer by the name of Darren Lynn Wood, who lasted only a couple weeks, and then they finally added Philip Peoples to round out the group. And it's basically been that group since. They haven't really had any turnover of band members. They released their first album, Hitchhike to Rome, in 1994, and based off of that record, they were signed to Bloodshot Records to record their second album, which came out in 1995. The name of that record was called Wreck Your Life. And they performed at South by Southwest, and as based on the strength of their recent album and their performance at South by Southwest, there was a bidding war by a number of record labels, and they ended up signing with Elektra Records. And I read this in a couple different places, but at the time they were hoping that the alt country genre would be the next post grunge genre in terms of the success and the spinoff and whatnot. So they were kind of putting the money that alt country would take off in a similar way that post grunge did. So apparently there's times where they will play as the Satellite Riders when contractual obligations prevent them from performing as Old 97s. I'm not exactly sure why.
Yeah, what does that mean?
They wouldn't be able to perform as themselves, but Satellite Riders is kind of a play off the name of their fourth album, Satellite Rides. So that's where that came from. And I guess Rhett Miller and Murray Hammond occasionally play together as the Ranchero Brothers. So they've got a couple of different names depending on their makeup. Fun fact, Rhett Miller's grandfather is Giles E. Miller, and he owned the first NFL team in the South, the 1952 Dallas Texans, which apparently went bankrupt after 7 games. So they were not around too long. So the band has released 13 studio albums, the most recent being 2024's American Primitive. I don't know if we're going to cover that again. I would ask that maybe we cover Satellite Rides. I think that's an album worth covering in the 2000s. But yeah, this is kind of in the old 97s world. This is roundly referred to as their best album, and they're seen as kind of I don't know pioneers, but certainly important members in the alt country genre, Americana genre. So
like the old guard, kind of
the old guard, yeah, and that are still kicking around and that are still that are popular and whatnot. So let's start with John on this one. What'd you think of Too Far to Care?
Yeah, this is a version of Americana I can get behind right here. It's rockier. It was my first take on this, if that makes sense. Had
you heard it before, John? I'm sorry. Were you familiar
I had
with this
not.
song?
I know Old 97s as a Mattcore band, but I'm not super familiar with them. And of course, within 5 seconds of hearing this, I was not incorrect that it's a peak Mattcore band.
Sure is.
I'm going to submit that to All Music as genre of music, Mattcore. But yeah, this is in there. But that's not a derisive term to me, because there's a lot of stuff you like in that genre that I like too. I don't really know how to describe what makes a band that I like in alt country hit my ears better than another band, because all of the instruments that could be in albums I don't like as much are here. But I think just the pacing of these songs, and like I said before, the rock underpinning of these songs appeals to me. I also really like the choruses on this album quite a bit. The choruses resonate with me. They don't get a little bit like sitting around the fire and shanty song, which the worst of Americana is for me, where it's like, am I listening to a song sailors are singing, or is it a song or people on a porch or something that doesn't appeal to me as much? This had more of a feel of the best bar band you've seen in like a small town, like small southern country town, right? Would be how I'd describe this. There's quite a few tracks that really resonated with me. The first track, Time Bomb, Salome or Salome, I'm not sure exactly how that one goes, but that's a really great track. West Texas Teardrops, Big Brown Eyes. So throughout this album, there's songs I really like that are super catchy and have instant replay ability for me. This album flies by at 46 and a half minutes. It did not drag at any point. It's a versatile album in that it can be played in a variety of contexts for me. And I think that was kind of my takeaway, that with this is definitely all country, but it's got more Americana, I feel like, at least the Americana that I think of that's coming afterwards in it. And I can see how this was a seminal band in both alt country and Americana because of the hallmarks with this. I like this way, way more than later incarnations of what this sounds like. And certainly compared to something like Wilco, the Wilco album we covered. Let me start by saying that, because I know there's like 5 Wilcos. So
that was being
I'd
there.
say.
Yep.
This one more is in the line of like the Uncle Tupelo stuff that I really liked, as opposed to like the Wilco and the stuff that dragged a little bit more for me. This one was a rollicking good time. It had versatility for me. And what I think a lot of these alt country and Americana albums that I like have for me is they don't pander to the country genre, but they have enough of the hallmarks of the country genre that when combined with what rock does, it is that syncretic mix that sounds great to my ear. So there's melody all over this. There's catchy hooks. There wasn't a lot. This is also an album that's hard for me to describe, because what you see is what you get. There is not, and this is not a negative thing, there's not a lot of like deep layer to this. It's like, if you are familiar with these types of sounds, like this band is a band with this album that does that sound extremely well, if that makes sense. And it's the version when I sort of begin to tear things like alt country and Americana, I'm gonna use this album as sort of an example of what this genre sounds like when it's done at its best. So yeah, very comfortable. I wasn't surprised I like this album, but I have come to learn that if an album is alt country, I'm probably not going to hate it, but whether I really like it or whether I'm just in the middle on it is a special sauce, and the old 97s have the special sauce that I connect with. So thumbs up for me.
John, can I ask you, like, did you have any I'm curious of what your thoughts were on the lyrics, if you thought like one way or the other about them.
I apologize. I'm sorry. I lost sound for a second.
No, I'm just wondering, like, did you have any takeaways on the lyrics at all? Did anything stand out for you as being either good or forgettable or anything like that?
The lyrics certainly weren't bad. It's a lot of lamenting about heartbreak and the American West / the Great Frontier. They certainly were not bad lyrics. I do think a lot of these albums tread in the same territory, if that makes sense. Yeah. So, like, for example, things like, they're good lyrics, but I don't know how I emotionally connect with them. Like things like, the first track, for whenever I hear goodbyes, reminds me, baby, of you. I break down and cry, next time I'll be true. And that always feels to me like more of like a tall tale than like an actual romance. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I was just curious because I think some of the lyrics to me don't make sense, but then he's got interesting.
That's like
turns
West
of
Texas
phrases.
Teardrops, I should say. Yeah.
Okay, but then there's like there's just parts of it, and I can do this more in my take, but parts of it that I'm like, oh, that was a funny line, or that was kind of a clever way of putting words together, stuff like that. Because I think that's kind of where.
Well, it's like it's a lot of like, she's a claymore. That's what she's there for. She's waiting around here to get blown apart. She's gonna kill me, oh Celeste. It's not that they're bad lines. They're kind of poetic stuff. But like for me, part of when you write a love song is I have to see a little bit of myself in it, and that's where it is sort of similar to like the shanty songs, where I feel like it's like, when I look yonder for my love, like there's a little bit of that to it as well. Where I don't go to this genre for lyrics necessarily, because I feel like either they're apocryphal and talking about storytelling themes, or they are sad boyish for me, which can sort of fall into a little bit more earnest
Fair
for
enough.
what I connect with. Yeah.
Yeah, this is a great album. It's again, like Maz, the one that exposed me to this band. And to John's point, I think, there's like subtle gradations in terms of like what alt country is. And like, if you add a little bit, is it like 51% alt, 49 country? Is it like more country, less alt? Like, are you throwing in rock there and like changing the pie to like three different ratios? Like that's, I think, in determining like what works for you, I think it really like depends on the amount of each thing. That's how I think of it, at least, because I thought of that too when thinking of like Americana and like in the country rock aspects of this. I really like this album. I think it's infectious. I feel like this is the example compared to the Smoking Popes. This is like what you want in terms of like power pop and like hooks that are great. Like every song on here is really good. There's no bad songs. Some of the songs are great. Time Bomb is like a great opening track that grabs you right away with the energy. They maintain the energy throughout the album, even when they slow it down on some of the songs. I really like, I think I respond to this too, like you, John, because it's so kind of rock forward. It's like more of a sprinkling of country, even though it's firmly, you can like, if you didn't know where the old 97s were from, you could be like, oh yeah, they're probably from Texas. Cause I don't know. It's just like infused with some sort of like Texas sensibility or that country sound on some way in their DNA. Another example of like a great song would be Big Brown Eyes. That's like a sing-along song. Your point about, or what Matt said about them starting out as a bar band is like so inherently kind of captured in the sound of this album. Like Big Brown Eyes is just a song that you can imagine like singing along to in a bar. And I feel like that's what kind of carries me through this album. I really appreciate how fast the album moves as well. at 46 minutes, we say that's kind of like the perfect amount, and that feels perfect for this. I really like Four Leaf Clover. They add a woman, like backing singer or something to accompany on that last track, and that really adds an interesting different element. I wish they could have, maybe if they had done that a couple more times throughout the album, like added that woman, that might have been elevated it even more. But that was such like an interesting kind of like final capstone to the album. I thought that was really good. And yeah, this is like, I haven't listened to any other old 97s albums, but I feel like I've listened to this one enough that when I put it on this time, I felt like I already knew it. So, and I don't feel like I've listened to it that much. So I think that's a testament to the strength of the album. I also think this is kind of like a mass appeal album. This is an album that you could put on for any group or kind of occasion, and I think everyone will respond to it positively. It's kind of got this broad, they're so talented, and yet the sound is kind of so wide ranging and broad that it can appeal to everyone. John mentioned there being not like a lot of complexity, or kind of like they're staying in this kind of zone of familiarity, and I would agree with that, but I think that they do it really well. This also kind of reminds, in terms of the Americana genre, or just another like kind of corollary band, would be like the Black Crowes. They're like blues rock, but they do the blues rock like really well, and like they're kind of homaging to bands of the past. I feel like this is the same way that they're homaging to like country and kind of older Americana. And the Jayhawks too, or something also I kind of thought of, although I think this album is better than that Jayhawks album we talked about. But yeah, this is a really strong album. It's like a not a hidden gem, but it's like a album I forgot about and was like fun to like re-listen to. And so yeah, this is a great one to check out if you are looking to like entry level into Americana, or just looking for a good album to put on making dinner or something. Thumbs up. Making dinner album. That's the highest recommendation I can give.
Yeah, I love this record. This is just like this. And I was thinking about this when we were just talking about the Smoking Popes. I'm like trying to like, why don't, because there's similarities here. Because even though this is like it's Americana, they're kind of drawing from the past or whatever, but they also kind of have their own distinctive sound. Mm-hmm. And I think that's really exemplified by the drumming. I think Philip Peoples has it's like a galloping kind of,
right.
It's throughout not just the songs on this record, but pretty much every old 97s album. Like he's got a very, to the point where like, and I'll do this thing with Sherry where I'll play like a song or whatever, and I'll be like, okay, Sherry, who is this? Because she's not as into music as much as I am and stuff, and I'll quiz her on some of my favorite bands. And like I played this, I was like, all right, hon, what's this from? And she like knew, she's like, oh, that's old 97s. You could tell by the drum, like even from the drumming, that she's not like totally well versed in old 97 stuff, but they kind of have a distinctive sound. But that sound there's a lot of similarities with these songs, but there's still plenty of things that differentiate one song from another, that whether it's the chorus or a guitar solo or a melody or whatever. It's both kind of samey, but also like distinct with each song across the board, which I think is an interesting kind of blend to be able to pull that off and do it well and not get tired of it and not feel that it's samey. And this, like getting to big choruses and big, harmonies are great on here. Murray Hammond and Rhett Miller do a lot of great harmonies. Murray Hammond's got a great voice too. He's the lead singer on Texas Teardrops. So that's, and he sings more in other albums, takes the lead there as well. I wouldn't say that all their albums are hit like this, but they went through like a trio of really great albums, actually probably 3 or 4 albums around this time, and this is certainly one of them, and this is just one great song after another. I love the harmonies, I love the choruses. There's some funny lines in here too that make me laugh. It's when I remember when I was young, when I was 23, wondering how anybody could fall in love with me, and now I'm old and I'm well past 25.
Yeah.
He's like this young kid that's like, oh my God, my life's over. I'm like 27 years old. What's happening with my love life? So it's kind of like little moments like that make me laugh. But but yeah, it's just you're right. The time flies right by. And I like the way that it ends. I think it ends very interestingly with like curtain call, like a bunch of songs that could be the last song on any album, but they kind of end with like 4 of them, like curtain calls and nightclub, I think are good ending songs. House It Used to Be, it could have ended there. And then they end with 4-Leaf Clover, which is kind of like almost as heavy as you're going to find any old 97 song. It's got and he's like screaming at the end, and kind of really getting into it, which I really like. And I just learned this because you brought that up, Josh. Yes, there is a female singer that's kind of taking co-lead and with Rhett Miller on that. It's Exene Cervenka.
Oh, from X.
Yeah.
Oh,
it's
okay.
the X lady was singing from that.
Yeah.
So good memory
No
on
wonder.
that, Josh.
Yeah.
So they enlisted her there, but yeah, and I would also say like. And it was hard for me to pick the songs to like what to put on here because like geez, I could have gone with any of them, but like songs that stood out to me more so this week that as being like, man, that's even better than what I remember it being. Like Big Brown Eyes, like that was a really good song to come back to. Melt Show, Nightclub, like that's just, they're all great, and this is to me, this is like, yes, this is a Matt Core elite album. This like the old 97s. And one of the great things I've always said, like there's certain bands like Matthew Sweet's one of them, old 97s. It's like, why wasn't this more popular? Why wasn't this a bigger deal? Why weren't the hits, what was it about them? And it's not even, I know John, sometimes you talk about, well, there's, what is that Goldfinger you talk about, that the guys weren't good looking enough, but they, but
yes.
their image might not have been. But Rhett Miller is a really good looking guy. Like he's got like the long hair and the charisma and stuff like that. So I don't even like, maybe not the other guys as much, but like it's kind of interesting that he never took off as like a bigger figure. But I almost am okay with that because that allows me, when I go to see an old 97 show, which I have multiple times, I can get right up front and if I want to, I can get right there, and that's one of the things about really liking bands that aren't huge is that you can get floor seats, you can get right up there and you can be like a part of the show. And I would highly recommend a live old 97 show. They always bring it, tons of energy, really positive, a lot of fun. And they kick ass. And I think one of the reasons that this might stand out a little bit more to you, John, because yes, it's got alt country elements. There's banjo in here, right? There's a slide guitar, a pedal steel, but they're in the background, man. They are not prominent. There's like, you're not going to find like a prominent banjo part. It's going to be underneath the guitars and the bass and the drums and everything like that. So it's more of a subtle kind of feel to it. But certainly, even when they're not playing those instruments, they definitely have, there's like a little bit of a country western vibe to it. There's some structures of the songs that kind of fit in that mold. But with the big guitars, they kind of make it more of a rock, almost power pop in some cases, type music. So love this record. Love this band, and yeah, huge thumbs up for me. I'm glad you guys liked it too. Yeah, I'm glad.
And Matt, is it a band that you still listen to their newer albums on as well?
On full disclosure, Josh, I'm not really listening to any new albums these days. But
old albums.
I will say that they did a couple albums after this. They did Fight Songs and they did Satellite Rides, and after that, like to me, they kind of fell off a little bit. But they did come back. I think like about 10 years ago, they had an album out that I really liked. And I think what I would say is on pretty much every album, there's a couple of EJs on them. They always have at least a couple of songs that are just like, there you go. That's what I really love about this band. So even when they're kind of not firing on all cylinders, they can still pull some gems out. So yeah.
Got it.